Hello, everybody. Guess what I made? What? When I went fabric shopping a couple of weeks ago, I just grabbed a couple of fat quarters because they were pretty. They were tulip pink. I don't know. I just did. And I'm glad that I did because after I finished my Call Me bag, I was itching to still keep going for whatever reason. I still wanted to practice some of the skills. I still wanted to work with the by Annie patterns. So I kept going and I went ahead and made what they call the Easy Does It bag. And that's this bag right here. Easy Does It. There's only one way to learn how to do things, and that is to attempt them. And I don't know that I would call these things easy, but they're doable for a beginner. So I guess they're doable. Anytime you try something new for the first time, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. But I'm so glad that I did because this bag is totally cute and functional. It works. It works as a bag. You can see it. It's got the right shape for the most part. I could probably press it into submission a little bit. Is it perfect? No. Is that zipper in there? Yes. Does it work? Absolutely. These bags though just feel so well made. Like when I looked at the pattern, I'm like, why would you need to do a lining? And she just, what? And then the inside is actually finished. Like you're not seeing any raw edges. And I'm like, is that even necessary? Yes, it's necessary. And it makes these things super nice. This was fast. It's basically you cut out a big piece of soft and stable. I didn't have a piece large enough in soft and stable. I had to use my Pellon foam flex, which gives this bag is harder than it would have been had I used harder as in like more formed. That soft and stable is softer. The Pellon foam flex that you can get from Joann's, it's just more readily available. It's hard to just go get soft and stable where I am. People carry it, but they run out of it. It's just not easily accessible. I can run to Joann's and get what I need. There are like 3 Joann's right there. Quilt stores, I'm tracking them down little by little. But anyway, so this bag is a little bit more formed than it would be with the soft and stable, which I found to be just softer. You basically cut out a big piece of it, you quilt that sucker down, you cut it into pieces, and then you sew those pieces together. That's kind of the basis of her patterns and her bags, and it really is a good idea to play with the pattern first before you jump into a big project. There is a bigger project that I wanted to see if I could tackle, but I had never worked with some of the things that need to go into that project, like mesh or elastic or zippers, and I'm like, can I? I'm a beginner, like, can I? Apparently I can. I can do it. And if I can do it, you can absolutely do it, and probably do it 20 times better than me because you'll take your time and it'll just come out beautifully. But I am so excited about this bag. I got a chance to work with fusible interfacing, which I'm new to working with. Installing a zipper, I'm new to it and it works. Zippers are easy. I'm not frightened by that at all. I'm actually not frightened by curved corners like I was. It works. They come together. Is this bag perfect? No. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good enough to gift, because that's kind of my goal, is to make stuff, but it to be nice enough to give away. By the time I turned this sucker, I was like, oh, shoot. Yes, this could totally be a gift right off the bat. This is my first Easy Does It bag. It's pretty quick after you get the fabric quilted. I wish that I had spray basted this onto my Pellon. I suggest that you do that because of how large it is. Pinning it just going ahead and spray baste it with that good June Taylor or that 505 spray and smooth out your fabric and then get to quilting. I use 12-weight cotton. Look at that quilting. You can see it from way across the way. That's what I'm talking about. I want you to see my thread. I do not like to quilt my quilts. They're too big. My machine is not, it's a starter machine. It's not, we're not doing that. But when it comes to small projects and getting to quilt them, heck yes, I love it. And I bought some thread from Sewing Art Center. It's the spaghetti thread. I think it's by, is it by Wonderfil? I think it's by Wonderfil, Spaghetti Fruity, and all these beautiful colors, and it's thick and you can use it in your machine. I totally used a 12 weight. It went through the foam, which is super thick layers. I just elongated the stitch to, I think, a 5.0, and you can totally see that quilting, like it's on there. If you want to be super fussy about this, you can center your, you could center whatever the image is or whatever you want to do. You do what you want to do. But if you do that, you're going to need more fabric. I just went ahead and let the pieces fall where they may. I wasn't really trying to super duper line up anything here. A non-directional fabric would probably be best if this is truly your first project, because at one point, if I hadn't been paying attention, I would have sewed this sucker in upside down, and then I would have had an upside down sewing machine. So little things to think about. I kind of tell you in the video, like, oh shoot, here it is, because I had it inside out and upside down, just all wrong. But I figured it out, and I really like this bag. I might actually keep this guy. We'll see, but it feels nice, and I'm really, really, really proud of these projects. If you've been following me along today, you've seen that I have done like 5 sewing projects, and like 3 of them are by Annie. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you'd like to watch me struggle through this bag, please do keep watching. Again, oh, and if you haven't subscribed or hit the notification bell, please do, so that you can see more of me and a beginner tackling all this stuff. And again, if I can do it, you can certainly do it. All right, guys, bye-bye. So for this, what I should have done was spray based it, and I'm so disappointed that I didn't. It still comes out cool in the end, but definitely spray based for quilting something this size. And I'm sure you guys are probably like, duh, why didn't you do that? But I didn't. So this was pretty simple in the sense that there are not a ton of pieces for this project. You pretty much have the zipper piece. You're making a ring, and then you do a front and a back basically, and you've got some handles and stuff, but it's just not a ton of pieces. You have some binding that you need. This could be a fast-ish project. The quilting takes a bit of time depending upon how you quilt it. Really, you don't have to do anything extravagant. Cutting it does not take forever, because you make one big piece, and then from that piece you just break it down and cut some smaller pieces. Not a lot of different colors that you can really choose. I mean, I guess you could do a different front and back and all that kind of stuff, but I would suggest sticking with one fat quarter and for the front, for the bag part, and one for the back, because joining these suckers together, it might look a little wonkier if they're not the same color. I hope that makes sense. Then you round the sides. Again, I'm so happy that I bought these Creative Grid rulers when I did. I use them a lot on these projects, and I find that if you do a back and forth sawing motion, it just cuts like butter. It just looks great. These are interfaced little pieces. You infuse to the back, fold it in half, then fold it into the center so that you have nice finished edges, and they come out perfectly. Then you do a top stitch around them. I am prepping a zipper. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a black zipper or a purple zipper. I'm so glad that I bought a number of zippers when I went to the quilt store last weekend. I enjoyed installing zippers. They're fun. I don't know why, but I do. I like it. And I'm glad that I bought purple, because that black was just a little too harsh. So I'm marking a line, and then I sew 1/8 on either side of the line, and then I cut on the line. I grabbed a bobbin so that I can change out my thread for the stitching. You really want to get a thread that matches the zipper if you're new, because you don't want this to show. My top stitching is not straight. It's not in the same place on both sides, but the zipper is installed, and I'm happy. It was fun. I make sure that I have about 1/8 or 1/16 hanging over, and then I sewed it down. And now I'm getting ready to encase all of those. They say sew a generous 1/4 inch seam. They mean that. I did sew a generous 1/4 inch seam on one side. The other side wasn't so generous. So it's still encased, but yeah. This is another project where she has a complete video for every step. That makes a huge difference with this, especially if you're new. That makes it bearable. I am using my blind hem stitch foot. I really like it. It's got a little gauge right there and you can adjust where you want things to go, and it worked out well for this. This was something that I struggled with just reading and not being able to see the video on the other one. I couldn't figure out what she meant when she was like, push it down flat and encase everything. Now I see. It looks so clean on the back. I wish that I had known how to adjust the seams better so that the top stitch was the same on both sides, but it's not something that somebody who's not looking for it will see. So now it's nice and flat. You can kind of see it from this angle. There's more on one side than the other. Not a big deal. So you run your zipper to do a stop, and then you make it even. Make sure that your zipper is where it's supposed to be. And just trim it even. Installing zippers really is easy. She's got a whole series called Zippers Are Easy. She's not wrong. They don't have to be horrible at all. So I sewed that together. You see me watching the video. Stop, pause, stop. I'd prefer to do classes this way because you can start and stop and do it and look and rewind it as opposed to doing an in-person class. This is much better. So you sew it together, and she's got a cool way of encasing the inside. And I didn't understand why this was necessary. I'm like, just sew it together, call it a day. It really does give it a much more professional finished look when you encase the raw edges. So you just fold it flat. Now she doesn't show you this side, and it gets a little funky because it's a full loop, and you have to kind of maneuver and figure out how to get that other part of the loop out of the way. I love when people don't show you the really difficult part. She does not show you that. You kind of have to figure it out and move it out of the way yourself. It gets a little tricky, but it's doable. If I did it, you can do it. I guarantee you. I might do this again. This was fun. And it just used, I think I used 3 fat quarters. How cool is that? It's lovely. I'm finding the centers on all the sides, on all 4 sides. And they came out pretty centered. I didn't have to retrim my zipper strip or anything. It all kind of worked out. The quilting caused it not to be as smooth as I wanted it to be. Again, I would baste, and I might, when I'm sealing the edges, I might go around multiple times just to make it so that it's a little straighter than it is. That quilting caused it to kind of ripple and whatnot. So that's a thought. And I'm not using soft and stable. I use Pellon for this because I needed a big piece and I didn't have a bigger piece. The piece that the soft and stable that I had was not large enough. And I didn't want to be joining it and jimmy rigging it and whatnot. So I lined up the tops and the centers and all of that. And then I realized that's the front of the bag and it can't be that direction. So here we go. I had to flip it around and start over. Story of my life. And then you just sew it all together. I did not find this to be super difficult. The edges were still round. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But I didn't have any places where I missed it or anything like that. So now it's ready to be bound. Soft and Stable by Annie is definitely thinner than the Pellon. The Pellon gives it a heck of a body though. This sucker will stand straight up by itself, which I like. I'd like to try this with Soft and Stable to see the difference, and I might like that just in the sense that it's probably easier to maneuver because this is a little bit sturdier. But hey, either way, it works. I'm doing my bias binding here. I like continuous binding. I don't want to be joining strips, so I made a square, sewed half the square together. Then I'll link the tutorial as to how I figured out how to do this, but I really do prefer continuous strip, especially when I'm going to sew the edges the way that I am. It really doesn't matter too much that the edges are not super clean. That's the difference between the way that she does hers and the way that I do mine. Her edges are perfectly straight. Mine aren't because I cut them with the scissor right here. And I don't always cut straight on that line. But I love the fact that this is faster. It's so much faster. And it's just one strip. Bam. And then you bind the same way that you would do a quilt. sew one side, roll it over, and then do the top stitch. It is not perfect by a long shot. I struggled with this, and I'm glad that this is a smaller bag, but at least you kind of know what you're in for with it. This was a great starting. I guess I'd say this is a great beginner bag. Maybe a more advanced beginner, because fighting with all these layers can be frustrating. I Again, I use my walking foot, and when I use my walking foot, I don't love how I can't get things as straight as I would like to, but it works. See? And it is clean. That's clean. I could not figure out why this needed to be encased. I'm like, just sew the stuff together and it's the inside of the bag, who cares? No, you want it lined. I get it. You want it lined and you want this encased, but it's more work and you got to fight with the bag a little bit. So just be ready for that. I match up the two pins to make sure that it's center, and then I put a wonder clip on either side, and then I go back and wonder clip the whole thing. That worked out well. So now I'm just checking to see if there are any holes, and I didn't have a true hole, but one of my straps wasn't fully encased. So I went ahead and I refined that seam, meaning I just sewed over it again to catch it, and I caught it. No issues at all. I just had to remember. And you know what, guys? You got to be careful with these pins. I don't like using pins because I usually hurt myself. I poked myself 2 good times. So if you can see that little yellow thing, it's a silicone little ball or cylinder, and you put it on the end of your pin so that you know where your pins are and so that you don't hurt yourself. Now, if I have them, I should be using them, and I have them, and I didn't use them until I drew blood. Then I was like, where are those things? And I put them on, and I felt safe, because when you're moving that, you're jostling that bag around, you don't know where your pins are. And then you poke yourself, and then what? Then your little feelings are hurt. My feelings were hurt. I was in pain. I joined these with a poor joining method, but I really wasn't worried about it. It's the inside of the bag. I overlapped the strap 1/4, sewed a 1/4 inch seam, and bam, it was joined. There are many ways. She's got a very technical way of doing it that just was technical and was going to take a long time. And I was ready to be done with this project. So that's how I bound mine. And look at how pretty it looks. It does look nice. I'm checking to make sure that the straps are enclosed, everything. I'm taking the pin out with my pin more. Little silicone things that save you. And I'm just pushing it out. I gave it a little bit of a press after I pushed it out and I looked at it. And when I was making it, I was thinking, this is not something that I'd feel comfortable enough to give away. It's not perfect. It's not going to look right. It's not going to look good enough to give away. Absolutely not. When I finish this, I could give that away with no problem. Is it perfect? No. But would somebody who doesn't sew know? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. And here is my bag. You might want to think about getting a larger piece of fabric if you want a fussy cut or have something specifically on the center. This is the front of my bag, and it's off just a little bit, but that doesn't bother me. Thanks for watching.